So as many people know, there are a number of candidates in the race, in the congressional race for the 13th Congressional District. Many have chosen not to be here today. For the purpose of the record, I can read the list of all the candidates who are on the ballot. I'll start with Kelly Daughtry. There's a guy named Knott. I forget his first name. James Knott, somebody? Brad Knott, thank you. There's a guy named Eric Stevenson, a guy named Matt Shoemaker, a guy named Fred Von Cannon, a guy named Chris Baker, and a guy named Devan Barber. And who am I leaving out? Here today, more importantly, those who have accepted the invitation to be here, and we're grateful and thankful that they're here today to answer questions, to engage in debate, and to present their platforms for the 13th Congressional District to represent North Carolina and Washington, D.C., are in no particular order that I wrote down. Marcus Dellinger, if you want to raise your hand, Mr. Kenny Hsu, Mr. Stephen Von Lohr, and Sid Sharma. And we want to welcome you all and thank you. Thank you so very much for coming today. Really appreciate that. The rules today, as proposed, are as follows. When a question is asked by the host or the moderator, it should be answered on a first-come, first-served basis, and then in the order of the hands that were raised. This would reduce the idea or suspicion of favoritism or bias. The time limit to answer a question will be no longer than 2 minutes. I'm going to try and hold you guys to that. If a question is more complex, then everybody should get more time. That's only fair. When answering a question, the answer should be direct and concise. No beating around the bush. How you will accomplish the particular task is what I think the voters want to hear about. At the end of each question, candidates will be able to call out each other on policy issues. The candidate who is called out should be afforded a chance to answer the claim, no more than 1 minute. The candidate who first proffered the evidence should also be allowed a chance for rebuttal, no more than 30 seconds. Name-calling, sandbagging, interrupting, irrelevant material, character evidence, such as a candidate's race, sex, economic status, faith, etc., are prohibited. The first instance will be a warning. The second instance will be a punishment at the discretion of the moderator. And the third instance will result in being expelled from the debate. Don't make me hit the gavel. Examples of character evidence that would be prohibited are including, but not limited to, saying that a candidate is of a certain religious faith would make him or her immoral in Congress. Saying a candidate is of a certain race or ethnicity would make him unfit for Congress. Saying a candidate had marital problems would make him not a good choice in Congress, etc. Character evidence may be alleged, but only in the limited circumstance where the candidate in question, quote, opens the door for such discussion. There's a couple examples here. I'm not going to give them to you. You all are gentlemen. You all are adults. And the audience members, both at home, in the recording, and here in this beautiful facility, will make their own judgments about your character based on how you speak. If a candidate has an ulterior motive for coming into Congress, can be alleged, but only in the limited circumstances where the candidate in question has opened the door for such conduct. Again, there's some examples here, but I think we can just approach that as we go. I want to thank the host of this event, Mr. Sosa, and the Hispanics for Trump organization, I think is the name of the organization, who has sponsored this event. And we want to thank him and his group for putting together a great opportunity for voters to meet candidates, real candidates that are asking for votes. With that all said, we can jump right in, and I'll start. I have a list of questions here. And again, audience members, you're reminded that if questions come up, I hate to have my back to you, but if questions come up during this process, please jot them down or try and remember them, send a note to yourself on your phone, and we'll get to audience participation towards the end of the event. The first question is one that likely is on the voters' minds, and that is about the economy. The inflation that this country has been experiencing has been severe over the last several years. People are understanding that situation in different ways. I think we'll just start with Mr. Hsu, if it's okay, and just move this way and give everybody a shot at the economy question. What do you intend to do to fight inflation?
Good afternoon. I am Kenny Hsu. I am your 13th congressional candidate. I was the lead activist of the Harvard and UNC affirmative action case. My nonprofit is Color Us United, based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm the author of 2 best-selling books. Your question is about the economy. We live in a rural district, in a rural county. We are debating in Granville County, north of Wake County. There are 3 issues about the economy that need to be addressed rurally here and elsewhere in the district and in North Carolina. The first is education. Rural people need to be educated as well, but the way that we're doing it is not good. Here in Granville County, we have schools that are only 60% filled, yet the government directs federal government money to these local education systems, enriching the proffers of the education in Granville County, when they could have just devolved that funding back to the Granville County taxpayers. I think that the Granville County taxpayers deserve to use that funding wherever they please, instead of just building fancy new high schools that are 60%, 50% filled. Secondly, healthcare. We often talk of a rural doctor and rural medical care shortage. Well, what is one of the problems with that? One of the problems with that is that we are over-licensing doctors, whereby only people with MDs who have spent decades in school are allowed to practice being a doctor. In rural counties, I think that PAs and nurses should have similar opportunities to doctors to prove themselves as good arbiters of healthcare, and in rural counties, it's a great place to do it. Finally, we need to be serious about the dangers of AI. John Deere's new tractor now functions on a John Deere licensed AI, whereby if you don't comply with John Deere's regulations, your tractor may shut itself down. We have to be aware of these things, and a candidate like myself who has researched and studied some of the dangers of AI will be able to address these things and negotiate on Granville County's behalf. For those 3 issues, those are my thoughts on the economy, on rural districts, and why I'm the best qualified candidate to represent you economically.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Mr. Sharma, to repeat the question, what would you intend to do to fight inflation?
Thank you. Appreciate that. Fighting the inflation. I'm an accountant, so there's no one else you would want in Congress but me to help lower your taxes. This inflation people have seen groceries went up, their gas prices go up, and costs go up in general. Best way to do that is to lower everybody's taxes. I propose to reduce everybody's personal taxes by about a 5 to 6% in each bracket. By doing this right here, I estimate that this will save, or rather take away from the government, about $1 trillion to about $1 trillion and some change. So I believe that the best issue for that right there is to give that money back to the taxpayers. Also, I intend to propose lowering business taxes by only for just 2 years. No business should be paying more than 10% taxes. That's the best way for people to start getting jobs back, business will start investing, and you'll see the money start going around. People want to know, how do I intend to get this done? The Trump tax cuts, or rather the key provisions of the Trump tax cuts, they expire in 2025. That's the year I'll be coming to Congress if I'm elected. So on day 1, I intend to introduce new tax legislation, which can therefore help the people on all those issues. And coming on there, gas prices. Coming into Congress, we can impose tariffs and sanctions on foreign nations. So coming here, related to gas prices, I intend to impose tariffs and sanctions on OPEC, Saudi Arabia, all those countries that want to sell us their oil. We were the #1 oil-producing nation under President Trump, and we can very well do it again. As President Trump says, drill, baby, drill. Coming on here, I want to give tax breaks to any company that regulates in natural gas, all the way down to the gas station. Gas heats our house, gas heats our home at night, it fuels our cars, it runs the entire world. With lower gas prices, it'll make the entire world go around, and we'll become once again an economic superpower, just as we were in the Trump administration. That's my answer for that.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Dellinger, what would you intend to do to fight inflation as a congressman in Washington, D.C., representing North Carolina?
So I think the #1 issue that we have that's fueling inflation, well, very high up, is government spending. Our government spending is absolutely out of control. We send hundreds of billions of dollars overseas through USAID and all of these programs, and yet none of that money is spent here within the United States. I think that the way to resolve that is single subject spending bills, so that every person, regardless of who you are or how involved you are in politics, you can sit down and read these bills line item by line item and know exactly what we're spending, where it's going, who's it's going to, and the intention of that money once those people get that money or those groups get it. I think the other thing that we really need to do is audits of congressional spending. Every year, we should be auditing congressional spending so that with those single subject bills, again, we can ensure that every dollar is going where it's supposed to be going, and that it is not being funneled through, non-government organizations and, private institutions and things like that, and it does not ultimately get spent the way that it is intended to. And right now, there is no tracking of government spending, not a penny. It might be tracked, but it just blows my mind that we spend, I think roughly, the budget is $7 trillion a year, and we don't know where any of that money ends up. We don't know if it actually is being spent, for what its purpose is. And Ron Paul every year puts out a report that it's just a very a small section of government spending, but he goes through and itemizes everything that's spending, so you can look at the waste. So single subject spending bills and congressional audits is how I would resolve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Von Lohr, what would you intend to do to fight inflation?
Thank you to everyone who came tonight to this event. Basically, we need to stop sending money to Ukraine. We need to stop sending money to countries that hate America. We need to reduce the taxes, bring more manufacturing jobs back to the North Carolina 13th Congressional District. When I ran for Congress in 2018, the same platform was used to run against David Price. He was one of the authors of NAFTA, which took all the jobs from the North Carolina 4th District into Mexico. I was one of those employees who were laid off by IBM, and my job was shipped to Mexico. So we need to bring jobs back to our state by reducing the taxes. Also, we need to open the Keystone XL pipeline to increase the oil production for our country and create more jobs. This will reduce the inflation that we have as we are living right now. That's my answer.
Thank you very much. Sometimes 2 minutes seems like a long time. Sometimes it seems like no time at all. That was only a minute, so good job, Mr. Von Lohr. Get your point across. The next question is another one that is perplexing Americans, and we see it, or at least most of us see it. Apparently, some people don't see it. We see it every day on X.com, formerly known as Twitter in particular, but the border, our southern border with Mexico, and what Americans want to know, what would you specifically do to secure that border? I think we'll start with Mr. Sharma this time and work our way around. We'll just keep moving that way if that works for everybody. I'm keeping track.
So coming here to the border, I'm going to tell you guys one thing. Only one person can fix that border, and his name is President Donald J. Trump.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Coming on here, 99% of the border is handled by the executive branch. So coming on to here right now, when we look at any candidate who wants to say they want to come fix the border, I just believe that they're full of it. Because when President Trump was in office, how much money did Congress give him to build that wall? The answer was $0. So what did he do? He declared a national emergency, shut the government down, And therefore, he got funds out of the military and built the wall himself. Now let's fast forward here to 2023, where the House did House Resolution 2. Now it's being stalled in the Senate for over about 200 days, close to a year now, and now they're trying to make amendments, and it's ping-ponging back and forth. So that's why I'm not being real too confident in people or candidates who want to say they're going to fix the border themselves. You guys want that border fixed? You elect President Donald J. Trump back to the office. Now, there are some things Congress can do, and what I would be doing on day one is declaring a trade war with Mexico. Once again, Congress has the sole power to impose tariffs and sanctions on foreign nations. And for every illegal alien that comes across our border, I want Mexico to start paying us back in tariffs and fines and sanctions and the whole 9 yards. You guys got to look at it like this. I don't know if anybody here does foreign travel or anything, but if you want to enter another country, you got to have a visa. So whether these people are coming from Honduras, El Salvador, Venezuela, Colombia, maybe parts of Africa or even Asia, they're all coming through Mexico. Mexico is allowing this stuff here to happen. We cannot have that happening no more, and Mexico needs to start paying us for all this stuff that they are allowing. Once we start hitting them with tariffs, sanctions, and fines, Mexico will start acting right, and then you will see that there's going to be no illegal immigration or any type of invasion on our border. Hitting them with economic sanctions is the best bet that we're going to have. And other than that, I just want to also give federal funding to ICE so they can raid these god-awful sanctuary cities. It is crazy how these sanctuary cities can house illegal aliens. We need to have an operation. We need to get them and send them out of the country. Other than that, that is my time, and that is my answer for that.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Dellinger, what would you specifically do to secure the border?
Well, first off, I think that as far as legislation goes, we don't really need any more legislation. We have plenty of laws that have already, I believe it was H.R. 2. We have all of the laws in place to close the border like today. So we don't need to pass any more legislation. This all boils down to an issue of enforcing the laws that we already have on the books. So there's nothing that Congress needs to do. Between, again, I believe it's H.R. 2 was the border bill that they passed a couple of months ago, and Joe Biden does have the executive power to close the border. With a stroke of a pen, he could totally shut down the border and implement things. I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast with Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil went down there, and things like Trump implemented DNA testing for families that are coming over, so that they can know for sure that if somebody comes through the border with a child, that they're not being trafficked, this border issue is one of the biggest problems that we face. In August of last year, there was a congressional committee, a hearing, and a whistleblower, a couple of them, said that, and this is August of last year, so this number has definitely increased, but 85,000 children had been trafficked across the border, and they are missing. The United States government lost 85,000 children. So this is a huge issue, but Congress doesn't need to do, well, maybe not anything else, but the number one thing that we need to do is enforce the laws that we already have on the books and get Joe Biden to get his pen out and sign an executive order to shut it down. I don't know that he'll do it, and as Sid said here, I think really the only way that this is going to happen is if we elect Donald Trump, and we'll shut it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Von Lohr, what would you specifically, as a congressman person, do to secure the border?
Before securing the border, we need to think all the invasion that we have already here in the U.S. We need to track down who are these people. We need to find out what's the criminal record that they have before we send them to sanctuary cities. We have one right here, Durham, North Carolina. In 2018, it was mentioned as a sanctuary city. That's why I ran against David Price. The issue that we are having in the border is because the Democrats and the elites are sending the message to countries from Mexico all the way down, saying that they can come here and start milking our taxpayers' money. If we stop sending that signal to them that they can come here and live off our money, they will stop coming here. Most important, when I am elected into Congress in 2025, I will ask President Trump to secure the border by ordering an executive order that the one that is already there, he did. It would be 2.0, and also increasing the amount of money given to ICE and the Border Patrol to avoid more incoming influx of this illegal immigration, that it is not an illegal immigration anymore. This is an invasion. We need to secure our border from an invasion. That's my answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monlure. Appreciate it. Mr. Hsu, what would you specifically do to secure the border?
Well, I need to express that I disagree with Sid here that, it's just President Trump's job to secure the border. No, it is Congress's job to secure it is our Constitution, it is written in the Constitution that it is Congress's job to enforce immigration laws. And the problem that we have in Congress is not that the reason why it's moved so much to the executive is because we have an impotent Congress that is filled with lawyers. I had a lawyer, congressional candidate, tell me the other day, well, we need to debate the provision of whether it's Texas's authority to secure the border versus, the federal government's authority to secure the border. No, it's Congress's job to act and to pass a law that says we're going to put National Guard troops at the border, and then we'll let the Supreme Court clean it up later. All right? So we need to retake congressional power, our constitutional power that was devised to us, Congress, about these kinds of things. So I disagree with Sid on that. And then the other thing is sanctions on Mexico. Are you serious? We need to be negotiating with Mexico and other foreign countries to get what we want, not sanctions. Mexico is not our enemy. They are too lax in their enforcement of caravans coming up from Central America and from Asia. But if we hope to have a chance at our southern border, we have to work with Mexico. We cannot treat Mexico as our enemy in this fight.
Mr. Sharma, I think you were called out by name, so to speak. If you'd like 30 seconds to rebut.
Isn't it 1 minute, then it goes 30 seconds?
All right, 1 minute's fine.
Coming back here to the border, Congress can only fund the issue. Under President Trump, he had no money. He did it all by himself. We had the most secure border in American history. Coming back here to this Congress, we saw Joe Biden completely take it away. So we know it's definitely by the executive branch. Congress can only fund the issue. More evidence to support this, Congress funds the military, but who's the commander-in-chief? It's President Trump, or it's the president, whoever that may be. Coming on here, I did give solutions. Of course, giving sanctions on Mexico, Mexico is not our friend in this issue. Yes, we have the USMCA, but at the end of the day, when they're coming from caravans from other places, Mexico is allowing that to happen. Whether they're coming there, because we share that border with Mexico and the Mexican government. Giving them sanctions would induce the Mexican government to absolutely act upon that right then and there. Yes, it is also Congress's duty, but at the end of the day, we are seeing the circus of what has been happening for the past 8 years. Congress does not want to budge on the issue. Coming on here, I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what can be done and what parties can do on this one issue. But coming on here, it's really being delegated now to the executive branch on that right there. And that's the answer I have to give on that.
Thank you. Mr. Hsu, you got 30 seconds if you want it.
Well, the reason why Congress has not gotten the issue done is because we have lawyers and idiots filling Congress who are too worried about the minutia of the details. We need an activist Congress. We need an activist person, myself, to be in Congress.
What's your proposal?
My proposal is to send National Guard troops to the border. Why are we having Joe Biden? Why are we relying on Joe Biden doing that? We need an authorization, a law that we can pass, just like Congress passed the Hart-Celler Act. Just like Congress has passed previous immigration laws. I know because Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1875 as well. So it is Congress's job to enforce immigration laws, and Congress has certainly done it in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Now we're getting a little lively. I'm going to take this opportunity to tell everybody, first of all, we should appreciate men and women who are willing to put their name on the line, men and women who are willing to be candidates in our country for any office on any given day. And so you have my appreciation, the four of you gentlemen have my appreciation for that, and I hope that the audience also joins me in showing their appreciation and understanding of what courage it takes and what the trials and tribulations of being on the campaign trail are like. For those of you that don't know, this district is gigantic. And I can only imagine traveling in all the counties and around what a toll it takes on people. And so you have my gratitude and thanks for offering yourselves for service. You got 30 seconds.
Recently, they've put in a bunch of stipulations in the last immigration bill to try to put things in place that will continue into the next president's tenure. How will you continue to make sure that the next president who comes in won't just uproot everything that you guys work to do?
You want to throw hands if anybody wants that?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Repeat that one more time.
Use the microphone.
What are you going to do to ensure the longevity of any changes you make in the border crisis? Because right now, we worked for 4 years to secure it, and then Biden came in and overnight it's done. Meanwhile, we have Democrat senators and Democrat congressmen working together to insert stipulations in current immigration bills to carry over into 2027 through 2029.
Well, the key thing is we have to pass a law. That is the key thing. Laws extend past presidents. This is what the U.S. has done in the past. This is why we have congressional supremacy. This is why the legislative branch is considered the people's branch, because the law is supposed to override presidents, this 4 years and that 4 years. That's why. So we have to actually pass a law, and that's what Congress is supposed to do. And that is what I'm going to return Congress to the mindset of doing.
Mr. Von Lohr?
Well, the issue that we are having right now is that we have H.R. 2 in Congress, has not passed the Senate, and that's because the Democrats that we have in Congress and the Senate. So by having congressmen in 2025, we need to think, like you said, in a 10-year period or more by adding a bill and amendment to the current law. That's how it works. The executive branch is the one that is going to secure the border by executive order. It's not the job of a congressman to secure the border, like we said before. Thank you.
Yes. So again, we already have the laws. Everything that we need in order to shut down the border is already in place. It is just the will of Congress and the president not to enforce those laws. So it's not something that I can do, but I think just like in Texas, this ultimately is going to come down to state legislators and state governments, because when the government, the federal government, doesn't enforce the laws that are on the books, the states then need to, just like Abbott has, call in the National Guard and do things in their own state to protect our national sovereignty and the state sovereignty. If Congress as a whole, the House and Senate, won't enforce the laws on the books, then, well, we have, which is happening now, that's a much larger issue at hand. And I think that the only thing that any one of us individually can do is get loud and, try to bring as much attention to the issue as we possibly can, and really just try to, make the issue as public as possible so that other constituents will call up their elected officials and try to force them to, again, enforce the laws that are already on the books.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Sharma, giving everybody 30 seconds.
For a bill to be signed into law, you need the signature of the president. If we have a divided Congress and a divided president, then there's a 99.99% chance that bill that we try to do for immigration is not going to get signed into law. That's why Congress has to work with the president. That's why I keep saying to everybody, President Trump or any Republican president who is there, they have the unilateral authority to issue executive orders, whether that's securing the border, sending their own troops, or anything there like that. So yes, we have bills that we want to get placed in there, but it's up to the president to set that tone and for him to sign that bill into law. If he's not going to sign the bill into law, then it's a dead issue, just like what's happening with House Resolution 2. But yes, we do want to enforce our own immigration laws and everything like that, but it's up to the president finally to sign that bill into law and therefore to make it law, as we've said.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit here on topics. As you all know, being a congressperson involves being a subject matter expert in a whole bunch of different areas. America is a huge place, and we have a lot going on, and there's a lot of challenges facing our country. And what the voters want to know is how you're going to approach the challenges facing our country. One challenge that is particularly heinous is the opioid crisis, or what's known as the fentanyl crisis. It seems to change names, actually, over time, the drug of choice that's causing the problems. But what do you think are the best solutions possible to stop this opioid crisis, fentanyl crisis, whatever you want to call it? And I think we stopped off with, it would be Mr. Dellinger is the first shot. You guys get 2 minutes. Let's hear what you got to say about what's killing young people by the thousands.
So yes, I'm not sure about a year ago, the stat came out that 100,000 people are dying from fentanyl every year. I'm sure now it's even more. I think really if we want to get down to the core issue, well, it's a two-part, multiple-part issue, but I think all of these precursor chemicals, most of this stuff is coming from China. And, it's like the opium war that we had in China and that plagued their country for many, many years. It's kind of like they're doing the same thing to us now. All of those chemicals are coming from China, and they are being trafficked through the southern border. So I think it kind of goes back to what the southern border question that we were just talking about. We need to shut down the southern border, and I mean, that's it. We have to shut down the border. If we can shut down the border, and I think that we should also impose, if possible, some kind of sanctions on China. We've got to figure out a way to stop this problem from the source, which is China. So we do need to shut down the border, and whether it's sanctions on China to make those chemicals harder to get for them, or through intelligence, there's a way that we can. Most of that stuff is shipped over on large boats. So if there's a way that we can stop it at the ports, I think that it again comes down to closing the southern border and really stopping the issue, which it's all coming through from China. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Von Lohr, you're next, sir.
Everything comes to the border and how to secure the border. We have the cartels coming from Mexico with the drugs, which also comes from China. If we stop sending our money to Ukraine, we can have that money to be sent to create and to give more power to our Border Patrol, ICE, to catch these cartels coming through the border and stop that at the root of the cause. Then we need to see what is happening already here. There are small cells in different parts of the country that they are giving these drugs to our citizens. By stop sending the money to Ukraine, we can have that money to help to have these people that they are having the issues. They can be treated so they don't die on our watch. That's how I would approach that issue that we have with the fentanyl crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Von Lohr. Mr. Hsu, you have 2 minutes. How do you intend to stop the opioid crisis?
A couple of things. Well, two things. One, end the education to medicine pipeline. And two, we have to be better about drugs. We have to be better about drug regulation. So number one, education to medicine pipeline. young kids as early as 6, 7 years old in schools are, being prescribed drugs at a very early age. They learn to grow reliant on drugs. When I was young, I come from an Asian family. We did not rely very much on drugs. It just was the case. I would take cough medicine, and that's probably it. And I grew up fine. I had a good life. Maybe I have good genes. But so far, we have been way overstepping our reliance on drugs in this country educationally, and we need to end that. Number 2, medical regulation. So opioids and fentanyl, remember, are legally prescribed drugs in many cases. And they're used as painkillers. They're used as narcotics. They're used as depressants, actually, And they are supposedly, hospitals, you're only supposed to prescribe these in certain cases, but they become quickly addictive. We are now seeing the consequences of that addiction. So the research needs to be done now so we don't make the same mistake in the future. We need to evaluate not just the main effect of drugs, but the side effects of drugs. And I, as your congressman, if I get into the health services committees, I will ask the FDA and I will lobby the FDA and pressure them to make sure to look not just at the main effects of drugs, but at the side effects of drugs as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Mr. Sharma, you have 2 minutes to tell us how you intend to stop the opioid crisis.
So I intend to serve on the Judiciary Committee, specifically the subcommittee on courts, rules, and internet. So coming on there, we have the sole power to amend the criminal laws and everything that relates to any matter in the courts and anything like that. So what I intend to do, I intend to make all opioid cases federal. What that does, any state that wants to process an opioid case, the federal government would automatically seize those cases, and therefore we're going to start going on to the next phase, which is going to start issuing harsher penalties for those who want to engage in drug abuse. I'm going to tell you guys, there is nothing cool about doing drugs. I know in the youth and everything, it is a very, 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 very popular thing, but no. I think that when myself, am very young, and telling people that no, drugs are not cool, it sends a different message to the youth. And coming on here, we want to start imposing higher criminal sanctions and penalties. President Trump did something amazing back in 2018 where he hardlined Congress, and they imposed life sentences for anybody who wanted to traffic in heroin, opium, anything of that nature. I want to capitalize on that. But also coming on here, though, any person or young person who is caught with a personal amount of any type of opiate-related drugs, we're going to get them through a special rehabilitation program. They're going to have to go under mandatory drug testing 3 times a week. We're going to make sure that they don't fall into the trap of this opioid crisis. It has been an absolute disaster. I have seen friends who I went to high school with. They are strung out on drugs. It is a very sad thing right now, and it absolutely breaks my heart. Life could be very different had they not done this stuff, and I got to tell you guys, we want to get them the help they need. We have to be strict on those who want to traffic and sell drugs, not only to our children's, but those who are caught with personal amounts and everything and who are leading onto the bad path. We need to give them a second chance. And we need to make sure that they are being drug tested. We need to make sure that they are following the laws, and we want to make sure that they start getting jobs. That is the best way to keep them on the track and on a rightful path on the way to life. And you can do that by amending the criminal laws and being on the Judiciary Committee for that. That's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. In case the audience members are taking notes or want to save up questions for later, it looks like we had 2 candidates reply basically to address the supply side. We had one, Mr. Hsu, who addressed the demand side more than the supply side, if that's my interpretation of what you were talking about. And then finally, Mr. Sharma talked about increasing criminal penalties, if I can succinctly restate your position. And I don't know if that's more demand side or supply side or where that goes, but in case people are saving up questions for later, you might want to consider asking more on that topic. We're going to move on now to the Department of Education, everybody's favorite whipping boy these days. The Federal Department of Education was created not that long ago, somebody in some of our lifetimes, some of us more senior people perhaps. And arguably, according to parents, that I know anyway, the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education at least, hasn't done the greatest job. All the scores indicate that things are going south, not north, in education. So the question to you is, what, as a congressman, would you intend to do about the Department of Education? Mr. Von Lohr, you're first.
Well, the Department of Education and the debacle that is happening right now would close that and send all that funding to the states. Let the states handle that. If the states seem that they can have the, what's it called, charter schools or homeschooling, the people can decide how they want to send their kids and have the education. They can use public schools, charter schools, or also use the private schools. So I would leave it to the people and the states, but I would suggest to close the Department of Education. It's been a debacle. That's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Von Lohr. Kenny Hsu, you're up for 2 minutes, sir.
At the opening of this debate, you said that this was a debate about not just the what, but the how are we going to do. And I think everybody here does not like the Department of Education, me included. So we're in unilateral agreement. I could just end my speech with that. But I won't, because people need to understand what ending the Department of Education really means. Ending the Department of Education means that your schools would receive about 10 to 15% less funding than they currently do. You know why? Because federal government funding is about 10 to 15% of your funding in your schools. Are you willing to let go 10 to 15% of your teachers? Are you willing to let go 10 to 15% of your custodial staff? I want to get there eventually, but the first thing that I want to do is I want to standardize funding based on outcomes. The problem with school boards in our country right now is that the incentive structure is such that if you're a school board, all you have to do is spend all of the funding that they allocated to you, then you can ask for a raise the next cycle. So the incentives is to spend, not to save. The incentives should be for us outcomes, and it should be based on math and reading test score outcomes. You should be only eligible for increased federal government funding if you can show improvement in your scores in math, science, and reading. And I'm going to draw a hard line on that. That's going to re-incentivize schools to meritocracy instead of useless bureaucratic objectives like DEI, and we're going to get our education back on track.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hsu. Appreciate that. Mr. Sharma, you got 2 minutes. What do you intend to do about the Department of Education?
So, best way to defund the Department of Education is essentially, I want to file a bill where any school that has received any public funds or anything, what they're going to end up doing is that they're going to have to release their curriculum via the Freedom of Information Act. Coming onto there then, any school that does not comply will receive sanctions by the federal government. And since I also intend to serve on the Appropriations Committee, I intend to have a bill that where any money we take back from schools that don't want to comply, that's going to be funneled back and to end homelessness for veterans and to other better government causes. Second thing I want to do, I also stated that I want to serve on the Judiciary Committee, specifically the subcommittee on courts, rules, and internet. Coming on here, I want to amend Title 42, United States Code, Section 1983. And that's where individuals such as parents, peoples, they can sue schools, municipalities, teachers, government officials, the whole 9 yards. But I want to amend the statutes. And what that statute will end up doing is that parents can sue any schools for any type of corrupting of the youth, peddling pornography, and all that disastrous material. What that will end up doing, that makes the parents win, that makes the public schools lose, and that opens the way for charter schools to thrive. Under right now, if you were to file a lawsuit under 42 United States Code 1983, you would have to essentially have what judge is on your case. And if you have a conservative judge, there's case law supporting your claims. If you have a liberal judge, you're not in a very good position. But if we amend the statute and add a special provision where parents can sue any school or municipality for any corruption. Therefore, judges are forced to follow it no matter what. And that is what I intend to do. And at the end of the day, that's how you chip away at the Department of Education bit by bit to where they won't have any more funding, and then the matters will be back to local issues. That's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Good use of your 2 minutes. Not meant as a compliment, just perfect timing, that's all. Go ahead, Mr. Dellinger, you got 2 minutes. Tell us about the Department of Education.
So I think this comes back to kind of my opening. Like we, in Congress, we don't ask why enough. We spend more money on a per student basis than any other country in the world by far. And so the issue is not a funding issue because we have plenty of funds, and yet we're having kids that are graduating high school that are reading at a first and second grade level. Why is that? Where is all of this money going? The Department of Education, I think, just as with most federal institutions, are bloated, and it's reckless spending. A lot of this money is spent on very large salaries, big events and things like that. So I think that we need to ask where this money is going, how exactly it is being spent, because if we're spending more money on a per student basis, and yet we're having those kids graduate from high school that can't read, basically, why is this happening? And I think that the other thing, so we need to figure out why this is happening, where this money is going. I also agree with Steve here. I think that school choice is a huge, we need to make that happen. Homeschooling, charter schools, private schools, parents should have the opportunity, and we should make it very easy if parents want to homeschool or enroll their kid in charter schools. They should be able to go wherever they want to, whenever they want to, for any reason. And so, yes, I think that's it. We need to find out how our money is being spent, why we're having kids that are graduating high school that can't read, and we need to open up private and charter schools a lot more, make them more accessible than they are right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. All right, so we've got a full rotation now. Everybody's had a chance to be first, and I think Mr. Hsu made a pretty good point. The fact is that you guys generally agree on almost all these issues. I think what the voters do want to hear, though, is the nuances, is the differences of your approach. Should you be elected? I'm going to switch things up and out of order here with Mr. Sosa's good graces. There's two questions that I'm going to try and wrap into one, and I think we could move to like the first hand up that wants to touch the question. Let me finish the question, if you would, and then after that, whoever wants to either pile on or show that if they think differently then the first speaker might be an opportunity to and then, because we've got a whole ton here, and everybody's going to be asleep if we don't move through them, right? But every topic is important, and I know the voters want to hear where you stand on them. I'm going to bring up the third rail of politics, and that is entitlement spending. Entitlement spending is an incredibly large part of the federal budget. In particular, I'm talking about Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. There was an attempt in 2004 by then candidate President George W. Bush to semi and somewhat privatize Social Security. What I like to tell people is that had that passed, had the Congress not freaked out, and everybody freaked out about it, had that passed, had young people who were 30 in 2004, let's just say, started putting some of their Social Security money into a more investment-type vehicle that was somehow tied to the stock market, their retirements would be completely full right now. All right? That didn't happen. And every time someone brings up the entitlement spending, that's why it's called the third rail of politics. Nobody wants to touch it. Which one of you guys wants to touch that rail? Mr. Hsu had his hand up first. Go for 2 minutes.
Well, I don't think it's a third rail of politics at all. For me, my opinion is pretty clear. If you put money into the government, you should be getting that money back. That is the definition of Social Security. And so any candidate who says that they want to make Social Security and people's entitled disbursements from the government, the first thing that they want to cut is not a serious candidate to me. What we could do at the Social Security level is modernize the administration, lower administrative costs for sure, but in terms of people's entitled right to get Social Security, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. There's a ton of things that we could cut before we cut Social Security. We could cut Ukraine spending. We could cut Israel spending. We could cut the Department of Education funding. We could cut Department of Energy funding. We could cut fraud and abuse inside the government because 10% of most expenses go into fraudulent activities. So already we're cutting things to lower our national debt. But one thing I do not want to touch immediately is Social Security.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Let me add on to it in case this makes things more exciting. The average life expectancy, COVID notwithstanding, is growing longer. People are living longer, far longer in comparison to when Social Security was first implemented. Is that a factor, or should that be a factor? Mr. Sharma, you had your hand up earlier.
So coming here into Social Security, every single time this issue comes up, Social Security is projected to go bankrupt in about a few years. It always comes up on there, how we fund for it and everything, superseding that matter. What I want to do, by all means, we can keep the program of Social Security, but those who want to opt out of Social Security should be able to. The people themselves shouldn't have to be paying in a large pool of money for until they're 65 years old of age just to get that same money back and in increments. It's just like you said, Mr. Berwin, if we privatize it or anything of that nature, we would have a far more substantial thing. And that's essentially kind of like buying bonds, essentially, when it comes to U.S. Treasury yields, bonds, or anything of that nature. So, I'm definitely with you on that issue 1,000% coming here to Social Security. We should have the option to contract with the government saying, hey, if we give you this portion of our paycheck, it should be given back to us in interest rates that are being boosted up for us, so we have some incentive to actually deal with the government and not being taken out of us by force or by any type of tax method. People want Social Security. That's fine. You could keep the program at all. But those who want to stay with it should pay for it and should not have other people paying into the program, because it ends with so many other backdrops and funnels for a lot of dark money and all that. Coming here into Medicaid, Medicare, it's the same idea. Those who want to engage in that should be the only people who want to pay for it. We shouldn't burden other people to pay for that stuff, and that's where a big chunk of our government spending comes from Social Security and Medicare. We got to chip it away slowly and give it back to the American people. By all means, I'm going to say this again, keep the program for those who want to keep it, but those who want to opt out should be able to and should be able to invest in government programs or do what they want with their own money. I'm for giving money back for those who want to opt out for it.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Give me 1 second, Steve. Mr. Von Lohr, sorry. I want to add to the discussion because it's going great, and I think it's exciting to get into the nuts and bolts of the discussion. Thanks for throwing in Medicaid, Medicare. I do want to say, by the way, it's not really my opinion that's being offered here. It's what's in discussion in regards in the general sphere. So we're not debating me. Maybe another day over a couple of beers. I'd love to do that. We've done that before. But Medicaid, Medicare, I want to clarify, Mr. Sharma, when you say people should pay their own way, sort of, the whole idea, from my understanding, is that this is for people who cannot pay their own way. So if you want to come back after we go around and touch on that some more, on what you meant, because it sounded like what you were saying. I understand the part about Social Security. If I have a question, maybe somebody else has a question about what you were saying. Mr. Von Lohr, the third, maybe not the third rail of politics, but entitlement spending in general.
Well, I don't call it entitlement because that's the right of every single American to give into Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I wouldn't touch it. But like Sid said, if there's people who want to opt out and put it wherever they want to put it, we can do that. But if we want to protect our people, we need to stop funding Ukraine, Israel, some part. We have a commitment to Israel to protect Israel. But we need to tackle the entitlements to the illegals and the refugees. That's where our money is going to. If we stop funding that, then we can take care of our elderly people. That's my answer.
Can I add on to?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Von Lohr. Yeah, you can add on to it.
Yeah,
I do want to throw in there too, though. Demographics plays a huge role in all of this. So the baby boom generation is reaching that point that's causing that year that you said where we run out of money in Social Security. Behind the baby boomers, there's a dearth of population. So some people might suggest that we'll just get through that and then we'll be okay again. Go ahead, Mr. Hsu.
Well, in terms of healthcare privileges, I am an expert because I did the research and I actually run the nonprofit that held UNC Medicine accountable for the privileges in admissions and hiring that they were doing in the name of DEI, admitting lower qualified doctors to UNC Health, admitting black doctors who could take a second exam to get into UNC School of Medicine that was lower rigor than the first exam. It's ridiculous what they're doing there.
Ignore it.
Another thing that UNC Health does is that they push this medical equity thing where we have to provide for Latinos. They call them Latinos. We have to provide medical care for Latinos because they have lower health outcomes. But every time you group Latinos as a racial category, you forget which of those Latinos are legal and which of those Latinos are illegal. Every time the left plays an equity game with Latinos, they are trying to give funnel more privileges to illegal immigrants in the name of calling it a racial game. That's something we have to end.
That's a racist comment.
That is something we have to end. We have to end this equity focus where companies, healthcare entities come in and start saying we need to provide equitable resources and then funnel that into illegal immigrant privileges.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Mr. Von Lohr, did you have a comment?
Yes, that's a racist comment coming from Mr. Hsu. He has done this to black people, and now he's attacking the Latinos. As a Hispanic American, that's very racist of you.
Can you elaborate on how you think that's racist?
Because he's saying that all the money is going to the black people and the Latinos, even if they are illegals or legals. That's racist. That's completely
Not what I
racist.
said. I stated a fact. The fact is, and you can look this up, the fact is UNC School of Medicine has a separate admissions program for black doctors where you can take a lower standard exam under a program called MedExcel, M-E-D-Excel. I don't think that's racist at all. That is a fact. And I'm not blaming black people. I am blaming UNC, and I am blaming the left's structures of equity for getting us there. And if you elect me in Congress, I will reverse these backwards privileges that America has allowed in our country for too long.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. I think we're going to change things up just a little bit here. And yeah, you, Mr. Dellinger, I'll give you a moment. So what I might suggest is in the future, if you have a challenge for something someone else said, perhaps at first, at least, it would be a little better to say, can you please elaborate on what you meant by that, rather than name calling and that's an opinion. It's not necessarily subjective, but I think maybe that approach for all of us might be a little bit better. Say, please elaborate on what you meant by X, Y, Z, and then if it still continues to strike you as being a certain characterization, you're certainly welcome to make that characterization. But if we could try to elicit more discussion on the topic first, I think it might be better for the audience. Go ahead, sir.
I have asked Mr. Hsu to elaborate about his racist comment against black people for many months.
Understood. I'm not denying that at all. No, and he rebutted in the best way that he could rebut. So I think we're, if you want to think that, that's fine. He thinks he's not. Ultimately, the voters will decide, and the audience can decide if that is. I'm not going to give my opinion on that. Mr. Dellinger, anything on Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security entitlement spending, I think is a topic.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to kind of the cornerstone of my whole campaign. It is corruption and government spending. So first off, I don't think that we should touch entitlements at all. We send hundreds of billions of dollars overseas, and I totally agree. No, we shouldn't give another nickel to Ukraine. I think we should drastically cut money that we send overseas. We shouldn't touch entitlements until we can get our own government spending under control. If we quit sending so much money overseas, we wouldn't have issues about, because as Sid said, I believe that the year is 2030 or right around there is when all of these programs, we're having trouble funding them now, but they're going to be dead just in a couple of years. We don't have the money to fund them. And I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this in the last debate, on Super Bowl Sunday, after this whole big deal about a border bill came up, and that it was dead on arrival at the House, the Senate went in and filibustered for 5 days, and on Super Bowl Sunday, they passed a $95 billion bill to send $60 billion to Ukraine. I believe it was $14 billion to Israel, and money to Taiwan, and there was some other little things in there as well. So this all comes back to we have to stop sending money overseas before we start. They are entitlements. If you pay into these programs, which we all do, and by the way, I agree that, you know what, if you don't want to be included in it, you shouldn't. I'm all for, whatever you would like to do as an individual. If you want to pay into it, fine. If you don't, that's fine. I also think that we really need a lot more transparency from Medicaid and Medicare about the cost. I mean, take a look at COVID. That was a very interesting experience, to say the least. And so, drug prices and things like that, we need to, again, audit everything and figure out where all this money is going, how it's being spent, and how we can improve with the money that we already have, improve the lives of the citizens here in the U.S. through these entitlement programs. And we shouldn't move the age or touch them until we can solve the issues inside our own house and quit sending money overseas.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to do another question now where first hand up gets to have a shot at it. So I mentioned it at first, and now Mr. Dellinger mentioned it. The constitutional issues that arose when this novel coronavirus arrived on our shores, and more importantly, the response, both on the state level but also on the federal level. I think what it exposed to many of us is that this isn't an issue that had been seriously thought about before, or whatever plans were in place were inadequate. And beyond the facts of how you see them, of what happened during the entire pandemic, the constitutional issues here, vaccine mandates, mask mandates, and especially in regards employment decisions or non-decisions, and in general, as states' rights issue versus federal issues, if you guys want to expound on what you see, I mean, let's just open that topic up and kind of see where it goes, because everybody has an opinion, and the voters want to hear yours. And also, I like to suggest to candidates that I've been working with over the last 40 years is if you can share with the voters how you make decisions. Voters want to know. They may not know every nuance, just like and the reason I bring this up during the COVID discussion is who could have anticipated in 2019 what we would be facing in the following year. But if we knew what our elected officials' decision-making process was like, maybe we would have had a better handle on what decisions were going to come out of Congress. Who wants to jump on this?
So now, can you give that question to me again? So we're talking about COVID, but what exactly are,
all right.
I'm sorry.
Fair. No, I kind of rambled a bit. I do that from time to time. But I want the subject to be rather broad, and that way you can show the audience where you come at it and how you come at it and what decisions you bring about it. But in particular, what are the constitutional issues surrounding vaccine mandates, mask mandates, especially as it revolves around employment? If those things should and could be made a condition of employment from a federal level, right? Because you're running for a federal office. Mr. Von Lohr grabs his microphone, ladies and gentlemen.
So basically, I am against the federal mandates. That's going to be a state issue. That's why we have the Department of Labor here in North Carolina. I'm against the mandates on masks and vaccines. Without knowing what's exactly in those vaccines, we have the highest numbers of dead people because of that vaccine. So we need to find out before jumping into putting mandates without knowing what's on the vaccines. That's my.
All right, thank you.
So this is a broad subject, and it's going to be impossible to spill this out in 2 minutes, but this is a personal issue for
Give
me.
you extra time.
Because I had a family member, several actually, who were severely injured by these vaccines, and they got them because they were mandated by schools and their jobs. I think there was so much that went wrong in this pandemic. We were lied to, like straight up. We were lied to. We were lied to about masks. We were lied to about the efficacy of the vaccines. If you got it, you wouldn't spread it, all of that. It was all garbage. And I personally think that there's a lot of people who should be in prison over that. We need accountability. And yeah, I think it comes down to a state issue. I don't believe in mandates. I don't think that what the Biden administration tried to do after it got struck down in the federal courts by trying to mandate it through OSHA was just garbage. I think people should be able to make their own decisions. And all of the, we saw things like Dr. Robert Malone, Peter McCullough. We saw, and many, many others. And I'm sorry, what they did by suppressing free speech, taking people down off of Twitter, Facebook, just the propaganda that we were fed about this vaccine, and they knew it. Fauci knew it. I can't remember her name, the dark-haired lady. She knew it. They all knew it. And yes, thank you. And they knew it. And so I think that, again, it all comes down to your personal choice. And we should, when you have people like these doctors, Robert Malone, I think he's got something like 20, it's a double-digit number of patents on mRNA technology. And when you have people like that who are standing up saying, whoa, we got to slow down, this stuff is nuts. The fact that they were censored is unbelievable, and the people who did that should be in prison. And so again, I ran a little bit. This is a very personal issue for me, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping all over the place. But I think that it's personal choice. If you look at the states like Florida North Carolina was not, but specifically Florida and Texas, they kept everything open. They ultimately did better during COVID than the states like New York and California. So I think that comes down to your personal choice. You ought to be able to listen to people like Robert Malone and Peter McCullough and all of these people and make your own decision. I'm not for mandates, and I think that if an employer or a school does mandate it, if they do that, then they should be open to lawsuits if anything happens. And you should be able to sue the ever-living daylights out of them if you have some kind of injury that is directly caused by the vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Just want to point out Mr. Dellinger is not an attorney, so he's not looking for business. Mr. Von Lohr and then Mr. Hsu.
Let's just say you elect me for Congress, I will send Fauci to jail and those who lied to us, because they killed many Americans, grandfathers, children, young people. We have many people that they are really healthy before they took the vaccine, and now they are dead. Fauci for jail when you send me to Congress. Thank you.
Mr. Hsu.
I'm here to show you my thought process for when you elect me to Congress. You got to understand that during this pandemic, most people had the intention of wanting to keep people safe. There were a few elites that really did not like it, but we did not have that much information. In March of 2020, when we got the SARS-CoV-2 virus, we started sketching out the map of the virus. and it comes in and it attacks your white blood cells. And the narrative bringers in our country painted a very stark picture of this virus. It's going to eat you up for the inside. It's like a brain-eating amoeba. There is a lot of this irresponsibility. Academia is uniquely responsible for what happened during the pandemic, because every time Fauci said something, he could rely upon Mandy Cohen, and he could rely upon the academics at UNC and Harvard who said this and that about the COVID virus to get people scared. We now know that many of the think tanks who supported this extremist view of the COVID-19 virus were funded by political actors. Were funded sometimes by foreign agents. You need to elect a congressman who knows these things, who can trace these funding sources, because we're going to get hoodwinked by academia again the next time something like this strikes. Don't get me wrong. If you elect me to Congress, the people who need to be kept accountable are these professors and these people who've been taking funding to paint extremist narratives of the spider flu, the COVID-19 virus.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Thank you very much. So we're going to do, Mr. Sharma, you got 2 minutes.
So coming here to COVID is essentially going to have to be a court battle. If you looked at all the federal court cases coming down with the Archdiocese over there in New York, also in California, federal courts have been very generous to allow people to enter places of worship and many matters like that, where we saw Governor Cuomo of New York, he tried to only shut down churches and everything, and then coming down onto here, he allowed liquor stores to be open. So federal courts have been very generous to those who want to not take the vaccine. Coming down here into COVID back in 2020, it was a lot of bureaucratic policies and implements that forced a lot of federal employees to take it, especially even coming down here in 2021 and 2022, especially into the Biden administration. Ultimately, COVID problems are essentially a court battle. Courts have been very, very favorable to people, and that's pretty much the best way it's going to get, because at the time, COVID was just so new that many people didn't have any answers. COVID's mortality rate was very, 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 very low. Many people died of complicated diseases along with it. Coming down to children, more children died in Chicago of gang violence than they did in COVID all years put together. So that paints a picture of how state governments and agencies use children as data to start trying to protect them and trying to implement mask mandates and vaccines. Ultimately, the best route and the only route is practically a court battle. Me coming into Congress, what I can do is that we're going to have to start implementing a law where that if there's a certain mortality rate of a certain virus, whether it's new or not, it has to reach a certain threshold to allow states or any other type of municipality or local government to issue mandates. There's a famous Supreme Court case called Jacobson versus Massachusetts, which allows any type of state to force mandates on its own citizens, but there has to be a high mortality rate on this issue. Essentially, COVID is a court battle, and that is pretty much the best it's going to get to that notion. Right now, COVID's not really as serious as it was several years ago. It's probably just now becoming seasonal like the flu. Hopefully, it doesn't exacerbate or come anything now here in the winter or anything like that. But pretty much best thing is COVID is a court case. Now I'm going to wrap this up. Coming to what I've seen of misuse of COVID mandates and vaccines, I want to hold those officials accountable via impeachment proceedings and also via sanctions. That's pretty much the best way it's going to get, and that's the only thing the government, or rather a sitting member of Congress, can do by himself unilaterally to address those issues. Other than that, that's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Von Lohr, I just want to make sure you know that microphone cord is wrapped around your foot, so if you get up, you're going to maybe put it behind you. I don't know. Thank you. I'm looking out for you. Yeah, absolutely. Just every time you step on it, it's making that feedback noise. So, yeah, that's great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Dellinger, what's your comments?
I'm not calling you out. I just disagree with one thing that you said about the academics and how it was a small group of people. I totally disagree with that. I think that as with any pandemic, there was a lot of mistakes that were made. There was a lot of chaos. for at least the good first year or so. But if you go back, some of the stuff, and we still don't know the whole truth, but if you go back and look at the things that we do now, going from even how this thing started, the whole lab leak, how that was considered a conspiracy theory, which it is not. You look at the censoring of these doctors. So much was done knowingly and willingly to suppress alternate ideas, which ultimately ended up being true. This was spread all across and all throughout academia. I do agree with you on that. A lot of it came from the academic institutions, but it was not a lack of knowledge. It was a lack of wanting to understand other people's opinions and look at different data. And this goes from the federal government, the intelligence agencies, academia. It's all across the board. And it was a coordinated campaign to censor and suppress alternate information so that we, the people, were not able to make a decision on our own, an informed decision. And if you look, my last point is, I believe the number is Pfizer. That company's been around for roughly 100 years. It took them 75 years to reach a total of, I think this number, hopefully I've got this right, it's roughly 50 billion in profits. In the 1 year that the COVID vaccine came out, they made, and again, I hope I've got this number right, but it's billions and billions of dollars. They made in 1 year what it took them almost 50 years to make in 1 year. So the profit and the suppression of information is really key. And I agree, I think that it's spread all across the board. It was not just a small group of people.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. All right. Yeah, you got 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, I think that some of our best intellectual talent in this whole race is on this debate. So I respect Marcus's opinion. I think you should be careful calling out Pfizer. Pfizer is in our district now. I don't care. I'm sure you do. I'm just saying, be careful. It's funny because my billboard. No, I'm not saying I'm getting paid by Pfizer. I'm not. I actually have a billboard that says Kenny Shue for Congress, X out wokeism, and it's right in front of Pfizer Stanford campus. But go ahead. I agree with the fact that big business, Pfizer, were given a certain amount of money per shot that they were able to get out to each person. That's what they did. They certainly took advantage of it, and that's how they reaped it. But in the end, it came from government policy. In the end, it came from the fact that the government gave out certain subsidies per vaccine to Pfizer to give out to those people. And of course, Pfizer supported that because it got them rich. But that is a result of government policy, and that is something that I intend to fix.
Thank you, Mr. Shue. Okay, so we've been at it a little over an hour now. We're getting ready to take a little break. Everybody can get fresh water or stretch their legs and, commercial break and everything. We could thank our sponsors and all that. But before we go, gentlemen, if you would, just so you know what's coming up in the second half, so to speak, we're going to talk more about foreign policy. That was touched on a little earlier, the Department of Defense, veterans, and then the Second Amendment at least. So those are things we can look forward to talking to after the break. But before we go, sort of two questions for each of you, if you would. The first question is one that you've probably been asked before, but good to get it on the record. Whoever wins the Republican primary in this race on March 3rd, and I'm talking to the voters now, early voting is going on right now through next Saturday, March 2nd, and Election Day is Super Tuesday, March 5th. Will you support the eventual nominee, whoever that is, out of the 13 people running in the 13th Congressional District? And the second part, or the second question is, would you, upon saying that, say something positive, genuinely and sincerely about one of the other three gentlemen that are on this stage here right now? I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Dellinger. Tell us about supporting the eventual nominee and then something positive about one of the other three gentlemen out here.
Yes. I mean, I think that if they win the primary, then best of luck to them. I think that at the end of the day, hopefully it is one of these gentlemen that's sitting up here on this stage, because they showed up and they clearly care. And I understand some other people may have other reasons, but this is the second debate and it's only been us. So, take that for what you may. But yes, I would. if they win the primary, I'll get behind them. And, well, I guess my compliment, I kind of just gave it, was really to all three of these gentlemen. I think that just the fact that they showed up, there's some shenanigans, as is usual in politics, but there's a lot going on in the background. And I'll leave it there. But the fact that these guys have showed up to both debates, I think they've gained my utmost respect just for showing up here. I think if you're not here, I mean, in a way, this is like a job interview, and most of the other people didn't show up. So, take that for what you may.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dellinger. Who wants to go next? Sid? I mean, Mr. Sharma, sorry. I'll call you all by first name.
Coming down to me pledging of what I pledge my support to a candidate who, whoever ends up winning the primary, only if that candidate lives in the district. I am vocal about carpetbaggers. Our district has more than 7-8 carpetbaggers running in here, and I believe that that's a serious problem because I have to obviously say all the time that if you're not running here, I'm sorry, if you're not from the district, I have no idea why you're running in someone else's district. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Do they hate their own district? Do they do that? I don't know, but it shows up as an issue of opportunism, and I believe that if you're running here because it's convenient, you will bow down to the uniparty because it's convenient. So whoever ends up winning, I hope that they live in the district, and then for that, I'll pledge my support if it's any candidate who lives in the district. Coming down here, it's exactly just what Marcus said. I respect every single candidate coming on here because at the end of the day, they wanted to show the voters their solutions. I know when we go on campaign stops or anything like that, we're only given about 2 to 3 minutes, and that's not really much to talk about or to really show the voters where we stand or how we intend to get the job done. So I have a great respect for every single candidate who's come here because they want to show to the people what they're about and how they intend to get the job done in Congress. And, you know, it's pretty much just like that. For candidates who did not show up, how can we trust them? How do we know exactly where they stand? Because if they're too scared to come here and debate, how can we trust them to debate other sitting members of Congress to get legislation in? So I have a great respect for every candidate right here who showed up because it shows that they have courage and that they believe in what they stand for and that they're not going to be hound down by anything other than their beliefs. So that's a great respect to every single candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Hsu.
Thank you. I care about the Republican Party. I love the Republican Party. I was never a Democrat. My first election was in the Republican primary. And I've donated to the Republican Party. And now, hopefully, to show you is good faith, I'm here at the Republican organized GOP debate, Latinos for Trump, excuse me. But even so, I care about this. I care about this party, and I think this party can move forward if we better enforce debate protocols. We should be making our candidates debate, especially even if they have tons of money, of their own money. They should come here and they should debate. And I'm willing to set the example here today and be that candidate. Hopefully you found out from me today that I can dish and I can get dished. At least hope you can find out. Hopefully at least you can find that out about myself, and I'd like to see if other candidates can stand up like that. In terms of something nice I want to say, I really do want to compliment Mr. Sharma here. I think that he shows good intellect and he shows good instincts on not just the what he's going to do, but the how he's going to do. So I respect him for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. So I've got 5:25. Does anybody need more than, say, 10 minutes of a quick break? Or you're still up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Von Loer. I apologize. I know he's got something nice to say about somebody, so.
I'm the anti-establishment candidate. Okay? So let me tell you straight up, I'm not going to lie to you. I hate carpetbaggers, and I hate those who are funded by super PACs. They are coming from family dynasties. When they go to Congress, they will bend the knee to the uniparty. I'm not that type. If I am going to support, if one of these three win, I will. The establishment ones, no. and I will tell you straight up. I don't respect those who didn't show up. You know their names. Oh, and I respect these three here because they show up, and you can see the age difference. So to me, I can say, well, these young men stood up in the fight to be called out, even to be attacked everywhere. So I respect them. And I told Mr. Xu, we have been having our disagreements for many months, but I respect him for showing up and showing this commitment. Even if he doesn't live in the district, at least he put a commitment. And these two, my respects to you guys too. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Von Lohr. Thank you. We're not going to go into the ageism route in regards to that, so because that's the other side that has that problem, I think. What I was suggested is that rather than going back to topics, since we have 5 or 6 questions from the audience, we'll just go straight to that. And then I think it's fair to give each of you a couple of minutes of closing statements, and then we'll wrap this opportunity up, if that's okay. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to suggest we give you 3 minutes for closing statements, and that way, if there's any topic we haven't touched on, take a good full minute to touch on that topic, and then your usual 2-minute wrapping spiel, which is probably well practiced by now. And I'm grateful. I'm really grateful. Again, having been in this field for as long as I have, I know what it takes, and I respect that, and I hope that the audience members respect it as well, because it's really a hard job. So there's a gentleman in the back that I know has a question. Sir, would you stand up, and if you'd like to come down here or from up there, and if you'll tell us your name and where you live, I think is a nice way, and then please ask your question. And we'll go 2 minutes each, whoever wants to grab it. But you can't have this.
I won't need it.
All right. Good.
My name's Edwin Boyette. I'm from Johnston County. So allow me to set this question up a little bit, because this is something that I think should concern us all, and we're not properly tracking it. As Americans, we've all been taught to be horrified and to experience revulsion to the ideology of National Socialism. If we got all the National Socialists together in the entire country, though, it probably wouldn't even feel this form. But in every major city across the United States, including Charlotte, including Raleigh, including Durham, there is a chapter of the Communist Party or a similar organization. And Marxism is pervading and innervating our culture at all levels. You say the word woke, what you really mean is Marxism. You say the word DEI, what you really mean is Marxism. If you say the word equity, anytime you should hear it, equality under the law is an American concept. Equity is a Marxist concept and should always be interpreted in that concept or in that context. So, if you're elected, how we use the power of your office, and the power of your office extends beyond passing legislation, right? The office and role of a United States Congressman gives you an immense platform to speak and address things. So how will you use your power? How will you use your power and platform as a United States Congressman to resist the Marxist subversion of the United States?
Thank you for the question and the little speech, Mr. Boyette, but I understand why the background was important to place. Gentlemen, you guys are good. Don't really care who starts. I think you all are probably eager to touch on Marxism. Go ahead, Mr. Von Lohr. We'll just start on my left and move to the right.
Mr. Boyette, finally, I'm glad to meet you. Marxism. We need to teach our children history books and tell them to see exactly what Marxism did to other countries. Being a congressman, it doesn't mean that you are a king and you can do whatever you want. But if we protect our children and tell them exactly what they need to learn instead of seeing pornographic books in school, that's not teaching. So by being a congressman, we need to incentivize our children to come back to the fundamental patriotism of America. This generation that we have after this generation, the next one, those are the ones that they believe that being the Marxist and the communist is cool because they were never taught history. We have examples in South America. All those countries were part of a socialist and communist. And if you see those in our continent, you can see that Cuba, it didn't prosper. Venezuela, it's in shambles. But we see now Argentina was going in the same route. And we have a president down there that stood up against the elite, the global elite, to fight for the people. That's what we need to do as an American. We need to teach our children the fundamentals, what made America great from the beginning. Our founding fathers were not members of the elite. They were angry men like me who stood up against the tyranny of the crown. And that's how we got so upset that the outcome was freedom. And that's the word. And that's what will make America great again. I hope I answered your
Thank you, Mr. Von Lohr. Mr. Dellinger.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. I've said this in a couple other debates, but one of my favorite quotes is it's Thomas Jefferson. When a republic has been corrupted, there's no possibility of remedying any of the growing evils, but by removing the corruption and restoring its lost principles. Every other correction is either useless or a new evil. And I think Marxist corruption, it is our entire system that has been infiltrated, however, whatever you want to call it, and we all know it. It's in the school systems, it's in the government, it's in all industries, organizations, it's everywhere. And I think that I really like what you said about using our platform, because at the end of the day, we can write bills, try to whip votes, sponsor things like that. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it is the platform that is really the big thing. And I think that using our platform to expose corruption and whatever, again, not trying to push the term Marxist away, but I mean, call it whatever you want to. We have to return an America First ideology back to this country. You know, our roads and bridges are crumbling. How many of y'all, let's see, I think it was on Friday, the cell service outage. Now, I don't know, they're saying that it was not a cyber attack or whatever, but, our communications and our power grid is compromised. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Just on several occasions, Comey, the director of the FBI, has gotten up and said that Chinese hackers have infiltrated our systems. We have so many problems. Those are two just off the top of my head, but to get back to my point, we have so many problems that we need to deal with in this country. Call it nationalism, whatever you'd like, but we have to start taking care of the issues that we have here in this country and taking care of our own people before we go out and slay the world's monsters, as our founding fathers said. So hopefully that answered your question there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Sharma. Mr. Boyette had asked about Marxism and how to use your platform as a congressional, as a member of Congress to address that topic or that subject.
As a member of Congress, denounce it every single time. No matter how many times you see the media, always denounce it every single time. We have roughly about, I want to say, close to 60 members in the Democratic Party who are vocal progressives, and we have some members known as the Squad who advocate for socialism. We even have members also in the Senate too, such as like Bernie Sanders. They are proclaimed democratic socialists. As you can see, the Democratic platform is becoming more and more socialist by the day. How you do it? You denounce them every single chance you get. As a congressman, there are 435 of us. As you said, we have a very vast platform. Denounce it every single time. I cannot stress this enough. Whether you're just walking in an office, going to a committee or anything like that, you see the news media, stop by, say, hey, we denounce socialism, say this, expose all the other members. Do it as much as you can. Tell people we are not a democracy. We are a federal constitutional republic. Our founding fathers came here because they did not want to be a part of Britain's empire. They came here and they said, we are a federal constitutional republic. You will see many Democrats, you will even see many Republicans say, how do we fight for our democracy? Call it out every single time. Because that's how you know they're part of the uniparty. The swamp is coming out there. When you stand on our principles, you show one thing and one thing only, that you are an American and that we are America first. We do not tolerate these other concepts and policies, and we will show that every single country that went into Marxism or socialism, whatever you want to call it, has always failed. Denounce it every single time, make note of it, and as me being a young person in Congress, that'll show you right there that we are not for this. The young generation is not getting lost. We have America First candidates, and we love this country, and this country is the exact principles that anybody can make it no matter where they come from. Denounce it every time, show your love for your country, and show your love for God. You'll never go wrong, and the people will start to see that. That's the best answer I can give you on that.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. You guys like my timer sound? Is that gentle enough? Is that Mr. Shu? You're up, sir.
I think it was better than your last one.
I'm sorry?
I think it was better than your last one.
Oh, good.
I fully agree with Mr. Sharma here. The difference between a great congressman on this issue, Mr. Boyette, and just a merely good congressman on this issue is not denouncing it at every turn, but it's discerning. It's discerning what is Marxism, because Marxism is clothed in many linens. When Catherine Truitt established the Office of Educational Equity in North Carolina public schools through her DPI, she instituted Marxism in North Carolina public schools. Because equity is a term that means that all outcomes for every race have to be equal, no matter how we're going to get there. Equity means that if a black student is studying less hours than a white student or even an Asian student, because as we know, Asian students tend to study more hours per day than the average white student and the average black student. Equity says that we have to lower and raise the grades so that the black student scores equally to the Asian student, even though the black student, or whatever student of any color, studied less than the other student. Equity is Marxist. That is a Marxist agenda that Catherine Truitt established in her department. Catherine Truitt went after magnet schools. She called them examples of racial segregation in our society, caught on video, posted on my Twitter X feed. You can look it up right now. When she says that, she is enforcing Marxism, saying the fact that some kids, by virtue of either being genetically more intelligent or studying harder, don't deserve to be in gifted and talented programs. That is Marxist because that is handicapping those who when we need strong intellectual people to be educated the best way if we want to save our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shu. Hold up, if you would, Mr. Von Loer, one or two things. I do want to get to the audience questions, and so if you save your response for your closing in that regard, then add it to your closing.
2 words?
2 words.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Kenny Shu for the Department of Public Instruction. He's the perfect candidate.
That's a little more than 2 words, but thank you.
Pick up microphones while the other candidates are talking, please.
Yeah.
Because it's really a lot of
Yeah, wait till you, while we're at it, I do want to give a shout out to the AV crew here. I know that everybody here really appreciates what they've done with the lighting and the microphones and all that. So thank you very much for the professionalism there. I have another question. I know that Mr. Stogowski has a question, and I want to make sure we disclaim that he, in fact, works for one of the four candidates up here, Kenny Shue. But if you guys are okay with it, he's welcome to come up here and ask a question.
Bring it on.
Go ahead, man.
And again, I want the audience at home to know the relationship so that I don't expect the question to be weird.
To be fair, it should be the audience, not the campaign director.
Well, I agree. But he came up to me during the break and asked if it's okay. But if you, do you guys want to vote on this, or how do you, Mr. Sosa?
I could ask the question, and then if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to.
No. You're a campaign director. You cannot do that. Dennis, you have the most experience on that.
Right.
I'm part of the audience, and I am down with hearing from him. I would like to know the question that he has, for sure.
Let's the people vote.
Yep.
Okay, who
All right.
want him to know another
You want
question?
to ask the question?
And does everyone understand the relationship between Mr. Stogowski and Mr. Shue? That he's on the payroll. Okay. I was trying to go at it delicately. He's on the payroll. But you guys still okay to hear it? Okay.
Yep.
So they've spoken.
Then
Mr.
the people
Stogowski.
spoke.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
If one of Mr. Von Lohr's kids has a question, I think.
All right. So the topic of residency for the district has been brought up repeatedly throughout this campaign, and I will grant, typically, I agree completely with that candidates should live within the district they're running. But this district is very unorthodox. So I wanted to, I guess, ask the ones who've spoken on that, because this is Lee, Harnett, Johnston, parts of Wake, Franklin, Granville, Person, and Caswell. It's very oddly shaped. So in this unique, unorthodox circumstance, is that something that still matters to you or applies to you? Because just personally speaking, I find it hard to justify how someone in Caswell County is the same as someone down in Smithfield, Selma, so it doesn't, to me personally, doesn't really apply. So can you explain that to me?
So I'll there has been some, and I've heard this in previous engagements from you guys as well. There's been, I think in the rules we talked about the carpet bagging or these kinds of comments, and there was some comments tonight that spoke to that to some extent. So the audience is clear. From what I understand from the Constitution, there isn't a residency requirement. However, I think most of the grassroots people that I know, and this is a Republican debate, and I'm a Republican, you guys are Republicans, I think that there is, from the grassroots perspective at least, there is an idea that people want to be represented by someone who knows them. I think Mr. Stogowski's point is, and I'm not helping you with your point, but I think the point is that we all know these district lines, first of all, were drawn very, very late. Very, very, very late. And so no one could really have anticipated where the lines might be. And then did you either accidentally fall into the lines or you accidentally fell out of the lines? Or have you moved recently to get inside of the lines? So I think if the audience knows this, and then maybe that'll give more context to the answers that may be coming. So go ahead, you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah. So the carpetbagging issue is that, for example, Mr. Shue, he wanted to run for District 2 before the new district was redrawn. So we have other people that came from out of state 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. How do they know what our new District 13 needs? It's your job to tell us exactly what we need to do for you. If we go back to the previous District 13, DeVan lost the election because we had Bo Hines, who was not from the district. That's why he lost. And that's why the people in the old 13 district elected Wild and Eagle. So if we have these people coming from other states, which are trying to sell books, look cool on TV, end up on Fox News. Camera, please. This is serious. This is serious because I call everyone out. So there are people who are selling books, people who want to end up on TV, okay? And we have the family dynasty coming from District 2, who were already part of the Rhinos. George Holding betrayed us when he decided not to run against Deborah Ross because his district was redrawn. They are funding their candidate who is coming from District 2. So it is important to elect someone that understands the people of the entire 13th district. I am lucky that Granville is in my district now when I ran for Congress in NC4 because it's the same people. And I've been around 10 years, 12 years as a grassroots, and from the grassroots all the way to the national level as the Republican National Hispanic Assembly second vice chairman. I know exactly what the people in our new district needs. It doesn't mean I'm going to tell you what you need. You will tell me what to do for you. But Mr. Hsu, in this case, because his campaign manager came up to state, I'm going to call him out. He doesn't know what our people need. He's running only on 2 platform issues, DEI and CRT. He doesn't know anything about energy independence. He doesn't know anything about any other topics that we have issues with. He's been ramping up in the last few weeks because I've been calling out that he doesn't know what he's talking about. So.
Thank you, Mr. Von Loer.
Came back.
Okay.
Mr. Hsu, you were addressed directly, so I think you should get the first shot at it. And then if the other 2 want to pipe in on residency, then you guys are welcome to. Go ahead, Mr. Hsu.
Well, first of all, I do look good on TV. That is.
You see, that's why I
and so, including on CNN, where I debated Abby Phillip and completely destroyed her on affirmative action. Anyway, you can look it up. So I posted a lengthy statement from myself and my campaign that I wrote on my website, kennyshuforcongress.com, on the issue of residency, where I not just talk about my own residency, but I also highlight the larger issue at play. The North Carolina legislature has redrawn districts constantly for the past 10 years. People were in District 13 last year are not in District 13 this year. People were in District 2 last year are not in District 4 this year. And a lot of that is because liberal justices authorized or unauthorized or deauthorized district boundaries. And as a result, we've had this constant flux. Let me tell you the intention of District 13. District 13 was created so that the Triangle area would have a Republican congressman. Wouldn't we all like that? Amen. We should have a Triangle area Republican congressman, because right now we do not. We are currently represented by Wiley Nickel and Deborah Ross and Valerie Foushee and Don Davis. And you will not have any representation unless you have District 13 the way it is currently drawn or something similar to it. Now, is it very weirdly drawn? It is very weirdly drawn. You can look it up. It's very weird. The fact that I bought a house in Raleigh and when as soon as I possibly could to secure my financial future, to show my commitment to this area, I hope that you can overlook the fact that as of this current moment, this house does not live in District 13. There are other candidates, of course, who don't live in District 13. There are other candidates who I would more accurately describe as carpetbaggers. And I think the carpetbagger motif is a valid one. But in my case, someone who spent time getting to know you, built his nonprofit here, done everything he can to support the Republican Party here, to support your ideals here, I ask that you overlook it.
Thank you. Hold up, Mr. Von Loer. Would either of you 2 like to address residency or district residency. Mr. Von Lohr, I think I will remind you that he has to not touch the microphone until it's actually your turn to speak, just for as a reminder. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sharma.
Coming
2
here
minutes.
Coming here with map changes, you need to run where the legislator tells you to run. I will point this out. Almost every single candidate who lives in District 2 lived in District 2 even on the last map. So that right there becomes a cause for concern that when the maps got changed in at the end of October, I start seeing a swarm of candidates starting wanting to run. So when I see that, I only see that as not coming down to really help people, but to really help themselves. And I believe that ends up becoming not a problem of constitutionality, but a problem of ethics. Where do people's morals lie under there? I truly believe that, if you live in your district, you need to run there. And it's not like we don't have brave Republicans running in District 2 or some running also in District 4. We have several. So what are they doing that other people who live in District 2 are running in 13? What's the difference? You can start saying that other people who live in District 2 want to come, or even District 4. We got several in District 4. Want to come run here in 13. It's because they want a partisan advantage. And that only means one thing and one thing only, opportunism. They'll try to hide it any way they possibly can, but at the end of the day, they need to run in their own district. It's just simply a matter of ethics. And if we're the party of principles and ethics, we need to be held to those standards. Because only Democrats like Wiley Nickel would want a carpetbag all the way from Cary to run in the old District 13. He lived in District 2. Why did he run? He was a carpetbagger, essentially coming back there to George Holding as well. He essentially got redistricted out of his area, and incumbents get about an 80% chance of re-election rate. And because Raleigh went over there and got flipped over, he said, oh, I'm not going to run. So we start looking at this here as the uniparty. And it's not like a Republican cannot win in a D+15 area. I'll cite to you guys the case of Ed Durr from New Jersey. He was, and I'll be brief on this matter too, the case of Ed Durr from New Jersey. He ran against Stephen Sweeney. Stephen Sweeney is the third most powerful person in New Jersey. He was the state Senate president. His district was like a D+35. Ed Durr ran as a Republican, and this was his party platform. My name is Ed Durr. I'm a regular guy. He only spent $2,600 on his campaign. He ended up beating Stephen Sweeney by a very slim margin. But to show you guys that it's possible, he ran on principle saying, I live in this area. I have to go by my residency, and he ended up winning, and he ended up becoming a state senator of New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Thank you. Mr. Dellinger on residency.
Yes, so when I filed to run, I was one of these people who got caught up in this district, the boundary lines changing. I live right in downtown Wendell. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's public knowledge anyways, public record rather. My home address, I had no intention. I mean, when I ran in the 13th district, I was running, because I thought that I lived in the 13th district. But because those lines changed at the very end, I didn't realize until beginning of January, it was at one of our very first events, that somebody told me the best way to go online and look is you can actually go on to the North Carolina, the State Board of Elections, look at your name, and that will tell you there. So just for everybody out there, don't use Wikipedia Maps if you're trying to run for office, because there's a good chance that it's wrong. So I live in downtown Wendell. I'm less than a half mile outside of the district, but I really did. When I filed to run, I really thought that I was in the 13th district there. I think that as some of these other candidates here have said, I think a very good determiner or a good thing to look at is where the people who are running, where their money's coming from. And I think that, I can pretty much just leave it at that. I think that tells you, if you want to find out for sure, you can. And all you have to do is look at the public records.
I won't leave it at that.
Go ahead.
The American Foundations PAC was the PAC that authorized this mailer that tries to talk about two candidates, I think Fred Von Cannon and Kelly Daughtry, both in a negative light. That PAC is funded by Brad Knott and his family, okay? Who also doesn't live in the district. I am telling you, voters, do not trust these PACs. They have their own special interests behind them. They are supporting a certain candidate. It is time for the Republican Party to wake up. Money can't buy you this election. And if money buys the election this time, we are truly lost as a Republican Party. We are truly lost as a Republican Party. And if there's one issue that I'm going to die on in this hill, that is the issue that I'm going to die on.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. Thank you very much. Hang on one second. Hang on one second. Yeah, I was going to say, audience members, audience member, questions without speeches. No disrespect. Questions without speeches. We got Michelle Robinson, who graced us with a prayer earlier, and has been dutifully taking notes the entire time, has got a question. You guys are going to just have to. Let's find out what the voters want to know. Sure. Thank you, ma'am.
Every time there is a mass shooting in the U.S., we hear about gun control. Elaborate on your stand on gun control.
You want to do it by just raising your hands or
But on the line again, you start.
All right. Who wants to start with the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America? I guess everybody wants to go. Let me flip a mental coin. Oh, Mr. Dellinger, you go first.
Okay. Yeah.
It's all in here.
So a wise man once told me that you need every American citizen should own a handgun for personal defense and a rifle for civil defense. And I think that's one of the best summaries that I have ever heard. I am for sure pro Second Amendment. Probably my favorite thing to do. My dad's got a little a piece of property, and I have a buddy who lives up in Boone, and I go up there as often as I possibly can. I've got 2 AR-15s, a variety of handguns, a couple of shotguns. I love to shoot guns, mostly target practice. I don't do a whole lot of hunting. But
If I can interrupt, thank you.
yes.
Gun control. Every time there's a new shooting, there's a call for gun control.
Yes.
And I just want to respect everybody's time. Tell us about your guns. I love it, right?
Yeah.
Because we can get into a match, and and we don't want to go there. So
Okay. Clearly, I'm passionate about it. Yeah. No, thank you, though.
let's talk about these calls for gun control. That's why I said Second Amendment. Let's talk Second Amendment.
Well, hopefully.
With respect, ma'am.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I was getting a little off there. Thank you for calling me out on that. Well, hopefully you can tell that I am not for gun control. In fact, actually, I think that we should promote more gun use, to be truthful. An armed society is a polite society, right? And I do think that when you go in, to buy a handgun, one of the things I'm not for gun control, but I do think that when you go in to purchase a firearm, I've seen some people that really they have the right intentions, but they don't know what they're doing. So I think that, we should really promote safe gun use instead of gun control. If you go to a range, there should be a lot more opportunities, not that there aren't already, but we should be promoting, proper gun use instead of gun control. And yeah, I'm totally against gun control. I don't think that the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment for a reason. It is number 2. And I think that it is, right there with free speech. Every person should be able to own and know how to operate a firearm. Again, a handgun for your personal defense and a rifle for your civil defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. We'll just go in order now. This way, I think we'll go Sharma, Hsu, and then Von Lohr. I think everybody wants to speak to this, right? 2 minutes.
Benjamin Franklin says, "Those who sacrifice their liberty for temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security." The solution for mass shootings, especially when it comes to schools, is very simple, and I intend to introduce this bill day one on Congress. Give schools armed security guards. It's just that simple. We start protecting our schools, you won't hear the Democrats want to demonize dead children in the media. It is absolutely despicable how low the Democrats have gotten, because what school shooters do is simple: committing a crime. Doesn't matter whether they're using a knife, doesn't matter whether they're using a gun. The interest behind it is that it is a crime. A gun cannot shoot itself. It is the person behind it. We have responsible gun users, we have irresponsible ones, and those who are irresponsible need to be held accountable. But the best way to start preventing is as simple as I said: give schools the security that they need. I am for constitutional carry. I want to start introducing all bills on that nature in Congress, but the best way to do it is to file a lawsuit, repealing pistol permit requirements, pistol braces, etc. That's what I intend to do in Congress, because our legislator can enact right now, on the spot, constitutional carry. They can put money to protect schools, but they don't do it. Why aren't they doing it? I intend to hardline the General Assembly by withholding federal funds and making sure that they specifically put in these provisions of constitutional carry and protecting our own public schools. If they don't do it, of course, I'm going to be right there with them and introducing legislation into Congress to protect our schools by having armed security guards. Students should also be able to go through metal detectors as well also. It's just better security, and I believe that's the best solution as it's going to get right now.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Also, to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Sharma is not an attorney. But I do want to let you know, in case you don't know, once you're elected to Congress, you do have access to a staff of crack attorneys. So I'm going to suggest that what Mr. Sharma was suggesting is that as a congressman, he would have his staff write up and then approach the DOJ to file suits in this regard. I'm not helping, I'm just trying to help the audience understand where I think you were going with that. Mr. Hsu, on gun control, any thoughts? You got 2 minutes.
I will never question the intentions of someone who chooses to own a gun. That, in the modern day and age, is what protecting the Second Amendment means. We live in an age right now where the media will polarize you for owning a gun. They will call you a bad person. They will say you are harming kids, you are threatening safety, you are threatening family. As your only proven advocate in this election, 13th district election, I have already the platform to advocate for your values. And then when you add the fact that I will be your congressman in the 13th congressional district, I will have even more of a platform to stand up for you in both a legal and narrative sense. I have knocked on thousands of doors in District 13, and most of the people that I have knocked on are gun owners. And I will tell you, I have never felt unsafe or threatened once. And we need people like that standing up for gun owners in this country. Because if we lose gun ownership in this country, we are no better than communist China. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hsu. I want to point out that was done in 1 minute and 11 seconds. Nicely done. We're going to go to Mr. Von Loer for 2 minutes, and then there will be one final question, and then we can have closing statements, just so you guys keep
Thank
track.
you for your...
Mr. Von Loer.
Thank you for your question, ma'am. And I'm going to be straightforward. History taught the world that gun control gave us Hitler, gave us Chavez in South America. It gave us Castro in Cuba. If we allow Democrats, Marxists, and the socialists to take our guns, we will end up in the same boat. So we cannot allow anyone to take our fundamental right to protect ourselves. That shall not be infringed. It will not go away. So I am against gun control. When we have these issues of mass shootings, sadly, the criminals, they are not registered Republicans. The majority are from the other side. Some of these shooters and criminals, they have mental issues. If I have, in my case, if I see that my child has a mental issue, As a father and a responsible gun owner, I will not allow my kid to have access to that gun. Sadly, these people that they are doing the shootings, they have the access to those guns, which falls under the parental supervision. That's how I believe. So I am against anything that will take our guns away. Anything else?
Thank you very much, Mr. Von Loer. So, as I mentioned, we're going to have one last question before we go to closing statements. A little bit of facts for you, ladies and gentlemen. I've mentioned before, early voting has begun and has been going on, and it goes on for like 17,000 days. But it will be ending. It will be ending, thankfully, on March 2nd. So far in early voting, 97.25% of black North Carolinians have requested a Democrat ballot. Hispanic voters in North Carolina split a bit more evenly. Many of them are unaffiliated. How will you win Hispanic voters for the Republican Party? And this is a question for each one of you, so whoever wants to jump on that first. The Dutchman wants to answer.
German. As I mentioned before, I was the second national vice chairman for the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. That's why I got involved into the Republican Party, because Hispanic Americans align with the Republican Party with the fundamentals: God, family, and country. If we teach the young children to love our country first, they will be the same type of wise men and women that founded our nation. The only way that we can get the Hispanics to come in big numbers to the Republican Party is to go to their community and show them how we aligned each other. That's what I did for many years. And that's how we can win that vote. If I can comment on Kenny's issue, he doesn't have anything on his website about Second Amendment, so that's, I need to call it out. So it's made up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Von Loer. Mr. Dellinger, how will you win Hispanic voters for the Republican Party? And context, ladies and gentlemen, again, this wonderful forum has been brought to you and is being brought to you by Latinos for Trump. Go ahead.
Yes. I mean, this may be oversimplified, but I really believe, it's like the golden rule. You treat others as you want to be treated. And you don't, I think one of the main things that the Democrats, you see it all the time, it's just the pandering, and it's demeaning, in my opinion. I think if you treat others as you want to be treated, and I worked in commercial construction, I work in commercial construction, and so that's a pretty diverse crowd. And I mean, they're very smart people, obviously, not any specific stereotype, but like we're all regular people. We are all the same. We all deal with the same issues for the most part. We live with them day to day. So I think it's just, treating people as you want to be treated, and not like pandering to them in a demeaning way. And I think that, just helping, making yourself known that you're open to understanding their issues, because there are issues that affect, individual communities. But I think, broadly speaking, most of the issues that we face now, we are all dealing with a lot of the same issues, which all comes from, our beloved government. So again, I just think that, working with them rather than trying to work for them, and hopefully you know what I mean. Obviously, we want to work for them, but you're working alongside of them, and treat them just as you want to be treated. And that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Sharma, how will you win Hispanic voters for the Republican Party?
We talk about American issues. You were born in this country, you are American. I do not view Latinos as Latinos, Asians as Asians, blacks as blacks, or anything like that. You were born in this country, you are American to me. Steve, you may be of Spanish ethnic origin, but you were born in America. You are American. My family is from India, but I was born here in North Carolina. I'm American. Kenny, same thing for you. You were born in this country, you are American. Marcus, you're American. We are all American in here. That's the way how it is, and that's how I view everybody. At the end of the day, you're born in this country, you're with us. The Republicans, we fight for Americans. Now, I know we hear a lot of stuff taught from millennia where we keep hearing, okay, this person's black, this person's Spanish, this person's Asian, this, that, and the third. But that's a democratic mentality. The Republican platform views everybody the same, and we fight for Americans, and that's how we've been getting the Hispanic vote, because we fight for American issues. And as long as we keep fighting for American issues, everybody will always come to us. So I don't view it as helping one person or helping. No, we're out here to help everybody. And as a congressman, our platform goes for everybody. Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, our legislation will affect everybody. And that's what it all is to be a part of the Republican Party, and that's why I'm a Republican.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. I do want to point out in the green room, before the event started, there were some really delicious chicken tacos and some chips and salsa. So maybe that's helpful too. I'm just throwing that in there. It was very good. Mr. Shu, Mr. Shu, you got a minute to tell us how you will win Hispanic voters for the Republican Party, sir.
I couldn't agree with Marcus, with Mr. Dellinger's comments more. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated. That used to be the way that most Americans think and discoursed about this issue until President Obama's second term, when he created wokeism in the federal government, and he pushed wokeism into the federal government through his Attorney General, Eric Holder. We got the current state of division that we do in race today. Most Latinos, most Asians, most black people, we just want to get along. We want to be understood. We want to help each other. Notice what I have not said in my campaign. I have not said, oh, I'm the first Asian American congressional candidate, so vote for me because I'm Asian American. I have not said that, unlike Nikki Haley, who has made an identity play, an embarrassing one at that, in my opinion. We should be focusing on merit. What makes you qualified for the job? And every time I've highlighted my proven record, that is going to win Latinos. That is going to win anybody who wants the American dream, because the American dream fundamentally is about merit.
Thank you, Mr. Shu. I just want to remind the audience that if a presidential candidate tells you that they want to fundamentally change our country, listen to them. Thank you. I think I'd like to go to closing statements, if everybody's okay. First of all, I'd like to give a round of applause to our wonderful candidates here who have really shown us the guts of who they are and what their candidacy and campaign is. So thank you so much. And I do want to give you 3 minutes. And like I had said earlier, if there's some topic that we touched on, please use one of your minutes or however much time you want to talk about that. And then, it's sale time, man. You guys sell yourselves to the voters. How do you close the deal at this point with the people that are watching, that haven't made their mind up yet, how they're going to vote on March 5th? As you know, most of our Republican voters wait until March 5th on Election Day to actually vote. It's like 40-60 at least. Luck of the draw, we're going to go Dellinger, Shu, you get the closing, you get the last word, Mr. Von Lohr. All right? So we're going to go Dellinger, Sharma, Shu, Von Lohr, 3 minutes each.
All right. I think that everybody here, we are all very well aware, as I kind of alluded to in a previous answer, we all are aware of the issues that are in front of us. We live with them day to day. We have to drive on the roads and pay taxes, high taxes, and all of these things. We live with these issues every day, so we are all aware of it. And I think if people in Congress, they might as well be living on Mars. They have they have abandoned us. We have been abandoned as the American people. And I think that if we all got together, just the people in this room and the people that are watching, although some of these issues are complex, I think that it probably would not take us very long to resolve most of the issues that we have at hand. They can be complex, but when you understand the issue, that is how you solve it. You have to understand the problem before you can, begin to solve it. You can't just start throwing billions of taxpayer dollars at it. So I think that, again, what we're facing is not so much an issue of party. It is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. We're facing an administrative state. It is a corrupt government. And as I said in the quote by Thomas Jefferson, our institutions have been totally taken over. And if we don't resolve the corruption within these institutions, everything else is either useless or a new evil. And so I believe that by electing me, my main priority, using my platform as the gentleman in the previous question, that's really what this is about, is using your platform as an elected official to speak out against corruption at every opportunity that you get. Try to pass bills if you possibly can, whip votes, do everything that you can to call out this corruption. And my last and final, I think one of my absolute favorite quotes, another founding father, Samuel Adams. And it does not take a majority to prevail, but rather a tireless, irate minority, keen on setting the brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And I think that everybody who's watching, everybody who's sitting here, everybody who's up on this stage, I think that we all are looking to set some brush fires. And if you elect me, I promise you I'll help you set those brush fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Sharma, 3 minutes.
If you guys want less taxes, less gas prices, more gun rights, and want God to come back to schools in the form of prayers, I'm your man. You want somebody who loves his country and wants to fight for you and to be the most local candidate, I'm your man. But there's one thing I want to talk about, and that is the American dream itself. You all here are the embodiment of the American dream. I remember that Lee County and Harnett County were Democratic supermajority areas. But with the help of individuals such as yourselves, you guys chipped away and made it possible that those counties now became Republican dominant. The American dream is essentially saying that anything is possible. And I'd like to thank each and every members of the audience today for coming here. Today is a Saturday. You guys could be anywhere else right now. Today's your day off. You could be at home, relaxing, doing whatever. But you guys came here because you care. And that's how I know this country will always be in good shape no matter how dark things seem. At the end of the day, it is you who I intend to serve. And the fact that you all came here means the absolute world to me. Most candidates didn't want to come here. And I have to say one thing. If they were afraid to come here, they do not deserve your vote. You guys want to see first and foremost what is going on and how we differentiate ourselves. And that's how I know no matter what happens, the people will always remain supreme. And that means the world to me no matter what. Coming on there, I'm going to just keep it short and simple. I'd like to thank you guys for affording me the time to speak, and I'd like to thank you all for all coming here. It means the absolute world to me, and I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Hsu.
I was in Lee County last week, and the statue, the plaque in Lee County, do you know who Lee County was named after? It was named after General Robert E. Lee. And it is time for us to teach and supply all aspects of what American history is and who we are as a people. And it was a reminder of disagreements, but it was a reminder that even people who have disagreements can still serve in honor, as he did, for what he thought was right. Now, America spoke. We fought a war. We fought a civil war. Bloodshed was spilled. People were set free, and we became a new country. But in the same way, we became the same country. We became a country dedicated to the idea of equality under the law and having the people speak. I ask that you consider that my proven record of speaking and channeling your notions, your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, your tendencies, that's who I am. I'm a listener. I will listen to you. I've come here to show you that I can listen to you. I've come to your door to show you that I can listen to you. I've raised all of this money to spend on my campaign, over $160,000, $170,000, out of good-hearted Americans, not super PACs. I care about this country, and I love this country. And if I am granted the honor of being your 13th Congressional District Representative, you can trust that I will serve you. I'm Kenny Shue. I'm your U.S. Congressional District 13 candidate. And I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shue. I just want to point out that these gentlemen are so good at this. They're used to giving 2-minute speeches that each one of them have lasted almost perfectly 2 minutes. So the third minute is totally extraneous, and I feel very generous. Mr. Von Loer, don't let us down.
No, I cannot keep it simple. No. I never ran as a Hispanic American candidate. Okay, let's put it on the table. I ran in District 4 in 2018. When the elite find out that I was running, they tweeted and they said, "I can't believe a white trash man is running for Congress," because they saw my name and they thought that I was white. What I did, I replied to her and I said, if I am running as a white trash, so be it. Because those people in the rural areas, in the trailer parks, they also need representation because they are Americans too. That tells you that I have never been running as a Hispanic American. But I was trying to bring Hispanic Americans to our party to show them the same thing, which is we are all Americans here. We are all America first candidates because we believe in the promise of America. I'm fighting for the legacy you and I will leave behind. My children, your grandchildren, if we don't fight now against the global elite, they will not have a country where they can stand. I am running because my children, I am running because my employees, I am running because of my friends. I am running because I've seen the Biden policies to bring the middle-class Americans all the way down. The inflation is hurting everyone. If we don't tackle that, how are we going to survive? We have seen, while the elite politicians are doing insider trading and poking that money in their bank accounts, we, the people, we don't have that information. We cannot get rich. That's why since I threw my hat in 2018, my policies have never changed. These ideas that these young men brought it up, I already had them in 2018. Why? Because we've seen that the Obama administration and the Biden administration, they are the worst. If we don't fix it and we don't elect Donald Trump and you elect me as your congressman, it's gonna be really hard to fight for our children and the next generation of Americans. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Von Lohr. And this concludes this wonderful event and evening forum. We want to thank once again Mr. Sid Sharma, Mr. Marcus Dellinger, Mr. Stephen Von Lohr, and Mr. Kenny Hsu for their participation and for their willingness to be candidates in this very important election. And we want to urge everyone to make sure that you cast your vote. Make sure that you tell your friends and neighbors that they cast their votes. And remember, in North Carolina, if you're unaffiliated, you may choose which primary election you'd like to participate in. So if you know people who are registered as unaffiliated, then please urge them to choose a Republican ballot and choose the candidate of their best choice. I want to thank once again Latinos for Trump for sponsoring the debate, and to everyone who attended, and especially the candidates once again. Thank you all very much and have a good night. God bless America.
Oh yeah, well, you should look it up my website and see what I do. You will love it.
Great job.